Hi everybody, my name is Kyelin. I'm in 10th grade and I'm going to be sharing a little bit of notes what I learned about Martin Luther King. Okay, starting off with a few notes, he was remembered as a symbol of equality and justice, and he gave the I Have a Dream speech in 1963. He also, a very interesting fact is that he also went to college at 15 years old, and how the black man had way more, way more better, not better, but I don't know the word, but they had a better chance of being in college than most of the white girls, and even the black girls did too. One of his quotes, not the I Have a Dream speech, but one of his other quotes is free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. And Coretta Scott King said is, nonviolence is the most powerful source that we have for the counteracting of hatred, bitterness, and violence which have infested our society. And that stood out to me because we live in such a cruel world, and how this world is full of so much hatred and bitterness, and it's just like crazy, because we need more nonviolence and more kindness and loving and care in this world. And in Martin Luther King's early life, Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15th, 1929 in Atlanta, and he was a very intelligent student and skipped 2 grades in school, which is that's tough, because he skipped 2 grades, and most kids in this generation can't really do that, so that's also really cool to me. And how he entered college at 15 that I mentioned. And his birth name was actually Michael King Jr., and his father later changed both of their names to Martin Luther King after a German religious leader, because his dad was so inspired by that guy, so he changed Martin Luther King's name. And leadership and civil rights. Martin Luther King became a major leader in the civil rights movement, and he fought against segregation and unfair treatment of African Americans. And he believed in nonviolent protests, meaning he encouraged peaceful ways to bring change instead of violence. And that is really cool, because most days when people are trying to speak on what's right and everything, they always need a weapon. But he spoke with peace and nonviolence, because he he hated violence, and he just wanted to lead the world without having to include a weapon in everything. And his most famous speech was the I Have a Dream speech in 1963 during the March on Washington, and it is one of the most important speeches in the U.S. history, and is still studied today. And another one of his challenges was King was arrested many times and faced threats because of his work, even with danger, and how he continued to lead peaceful protests and inspire others. And it's inspired me to, instead of getting mad and always wanting to just always just want to fight somebody, I like how he is inspiring others to just lead with kindness. And what I learned today, how the little boy, he made a little trail in the sand, and how the water started off little, but then it continued to keep flowing. And this is how Martin Luther King's march was. It still continued to keep flowing, and some people still do marches today about equal rights and everything. And later in his life, he also spoke about poverty and equality, and how he wanted fairness, not just in race, but in jobs, money, and living conditions. And I think that's important, because still in this life, we also still face racism. Sometimes people treat us different based off the color of our skin. and that's just unfair. And his legacy, Martin Luther King Jr., is remembered as a symbol of peace, justice, and equality. And its impact is still seen today through laws, history, and Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And I loved how we visited Martin Luther King's his house where he was born, and how his wife, after it was kind of like torn a little bit down, his wife bought some furniture and stuff, and knew that it was going to change, and knew that people were going to come back to see where he lived, and how he didn't live in the he wasn't lower class or higher class. He was like in middle class, and how he saw both parts of the world. And some people don't mention that, how he actually he was like high middle class, something like that. Because before I thought he lived in like a really small broken house before I learned that today. So that was very interesting to me. And we have two more. Leadership. He led the SCLC, a group that fought for civil rights and equality for African Americans. And that was really cool. And his beliefs, he strongly believed in nonviolence and peaceful protests even when others were violent. And I think I already talked about that. But those were my inputs on, what I wrote on Martin Luther King. And just one more, this was just one question. It said, what might God be inviting you into, your family, friendship, group, or church into? And I said, God might be inviting me to be more loving, patient, and kind in my family and friendships. And in my church, it can mean being more active, helping others, and encouraging people who feel left out. And it may also mean standing up for what is right, just like Martin Luther King Jr., but in a peaceful and respectful way. And what I learned today really moved me and made me want to be a part of what Martin Luther King did. And I just love how he fought for our rights, and how we are, and how the world is today, how we could be in the same class as white people and use the same bathrooms and everything else. And that is all of my notes. Thank you for listening to me. Kyelin, out.